Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel. And this is a situation right now. I can't believe it's actually come to this, but this indeed is what it has come to. First and foremost, I want to dedicate this class and everything moving forward to our brave soldiers who are on the front lines right now. Now, y'all know exactly what I think about government, right? All government, anytime politics is involved throughout history, there's no such thing as an uncorrupt politician. The good ones are the dead ones because they actually mattered. Not all of them. Anyway, our soldiers are on the ground right now, and they're inside Gaza, and the operations are moving forward. They're saying that, right now they're on the outskirts, sort of, but they are inside on the ground. And if you don't think that the United States coming along and keeping us back for 3 weeks from doing this gave them ample time to booby trap the entire area, which we said we are going to now go in, then come on, let's be real here. So may God be with them. May God protect them. I want to say some Tehillim for our soldiers. Anything you say right now, this is for them, and understand this, they are all tzaddikim. Right now, they are doing what our government should have been doing a long time ago. You see, it's nothing new that the state of Israel doesn't follow the word of God, but also we understand, according to the Torah, if someone, you know that someone wants to kill you, you are obligated to rise up before them and kill them first. Iran is stating, we are going to nuke Israel. Okay, why aren't we nuking Iran? See what I'm saying? Okay. The other thing is, right now they're going in, they're fighting Hamas. Who is Hamas? Hamas is Amalek. Yes, they might be Ishmael, but like we said, you can determine who is Amalek based on their viciousness. What they did, it's really hard to say. Even the Nazis didn't do. The Nazis were very efficient killers. But the whole raping and pillaging and dismembering and parading everyone, that, I don't, have we seen something like this on such a mass scale? This is absolutely Amalek. Make no mistake. And what does God say? Meched zecher Amalek. You will wipe them out. And so, right now, on all accounts, government aside, they are doing God's work. Tzva Hagana Israel. And may God protect them, every last one of them. And they are all tzaddikim because they are now giving their lives for God's people, that is for God's namesake. They are all tzaddikim, and if God forbid they don't go through any tikkun in Gehenom, nothing. They go to the highest levels of Gan Eden. Kulam tzaddikim. It's amazing. We are now being protected by God's angels. So, let's say a few words for them. Start with Psalms 27. לדוד אדוני אורי ואישי ממי ירא, אדוני מעוז חיי ממי אפחד. בקרוב אליי מריעים לאכול את בשרי צרי ואויבי לי המה כשלו ונפלו. אם תחנה עלי מחנה לא ירא ליבי, אם תקום עלי מלחמה בזאת אני בוטח. אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש, שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו. כי יצפינני בסוכו ביום רעה, הסתירני בסתר אוהלו בצור ירוממני. ואתה ירום ראשי על אויבי סביבותי ואזבחה באוהלו זבחי תורה. השירה והזמרה לאדוני. שמע אדוני קולי אקרא וחנני וענני. לך אמר ליבי בקשו פניי את פניך אדוני בקש. אל תסתר פניך ממני, אל תת באף עבדך עזרתי היית. אל תתשני ואל תעזבני אלוהי אישי. כי אבי ואמי עזבוני ואדוני יאספני. הורני אדוני דרכך ונחני ברוך מישור למען שוררי. אל תיתנני בנפש צרי כי קמו בי ידי שקר ויפח חמאס. לולא האמנתי לראות בטוב אדוני בארץ חיים. קווה אל אדוני חזק ואמץ ליבך וקווה אל אדוני. By the way, just go ahead, you guys know I'm kind of sick right now. I got a throat thing and I feel like I'm in a bubble. So if I seem a little bit more off than usual, that's that. But this has to go on. What else we got? To strengthen our soldiers' hearts, we're going to say Psalms 23. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בינות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, דישנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. Psalms 20. למנצח מזמור לדוד יענך אדוני ביום צרה, ישגבך שם אלוהי יעקב, ישלח עזרך מקודש ומציון יסעדך, יזכור כל מנחותיך ועלותך ידשן הסלע, ייתן לך חיל לבביך וכל עצתך ימלא, נרננה בישועתך ובשם אלוהינו נדגול, ימלא אדוני כל משאלותיך, עתה ידעתי כי הושיע אדוני משיחו, יענהו משמי קודשו, בגבורות ישע ימינו, אלה ברכב ואלה בסוסים, ואנחנו בשם אדוני אלוהינו נזכיר, הם עקרו ונפלו, ואנחנו קמנו ונתעודד, אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ביום קוראנו. Again, may God send angels to protect his angels. So let's get into it right now. We are starting a new chapter in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, because again, this is what we do right now. We are in the Chavalim of Mashiach. We are in the birth pangs of Mashiach, and this is going to be step after step. And the only thing that we can do right now to strengthen our own hearts, to strengthen our soldiers, and to bring God's perfect plan into fruition is to learn Torah, to live according to the Torah, and to be kind to one another. That's it. This is what we do. And this one is called The Necessary Descent, chapter 39a. Hallelujah Adonai kol goyim, shabechu kol ha'omim, ki gavar alenu chasdo ve'emet Adonai la'olam. Hallelujah. So in chapter 14, titled The Aftermath, we discuss the 10 descents that God has and will make from the time of the beginning until the time of the end. Now, I recommend that you guys at least see the first 5 or 10 minutes of the video, just explain what it means, God's descents, and how we actually, in other words, where it actually comes from. How it is derived from Scripture, because if it's not from Scripture, then it doesn't mean anything. So the 10 descents upon the earth were made by the Holy and Blessed be He, and they were 1, once in the Garden of Eden, and again, this is all written down, watch the video, once in the Garden of Eden, once in the time of the generation of the dispersion, once at Sodom, once to Egypt, once at the burning bush, once at Sinai, once in the cleft of the rock, twice in the tent of assembly, and that's 9, and then the last one once in the future, and that pretty soon. Now, understand this. Does God have to descend? Does he need to descend in order to see for himself what is going on here? No. Is God sitting up there? Metaphorically, so to speak, this is for our feeble understanding, but God is everywhere. He doesn't have to go anywhere because he is everywhere. This vernacular is allegorical, just like God's hands, eyes, feet, and so on. He has no form. He himself expressed this at Mount Sinai, before and after. This far we delved into these 3 descents, and now we're going into the 4th. This is how our class begins. The 4th descent of the Holy One, blessed be he, was when he descended to Egypt, as said in Genesis 46:4. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up, and Joseph will place his hands over your eyes. Anochi ered imecha mitzrayma, va'anochi a'alecha gam alo, ve'yosef yashit yado al einecha. Now, my friends, I want you to pay close attention to the following texts. Our father Jacob's spirit was indeed revived, okay, after he got word that Joseph was alive. Now, here's a scenario for you, okay? Jacob loved Joseph more than anyone or anything in the world. He was his firstborn son to his soulmate, Rachel. Joseph looked exactly like his father, just like Isaac looked exactly like Abraham. He knew he was to be king and to save his brothers and, by extension, the world. Jacob knew this. He saw this. But when he got word that Joseph had died, he gave up all hope. And it all but broke him. Now, we covered it plenty, obviously. that this was all part of God's plan every single step of the way. God is the one that made this happen, just like God is the one that is making this happen today. This is all part of God's plan, okay? We don't give up hope. But Jacob all but gave up hope. Almost, but didn't really, okay? And we could see his plan in this regard in the 3 teachings we gave recently about Joseph. But now that he knows that Joseph is alive all of a sudden, and not only alive, but ruling Egypt and thereby the world, immediately the spirit returned to Jacob, and he wanted nothing more than to unite with his long-lost son after 22 years of living in darkness. Who of us, which one of us, were they, God forbid, in the same situation, not run immediately to our child or loved one that had been taken? Just ask the families of right now the numbers at over 240 kidnapped by America's proxy, Hamas. Let's just skip over Iran here, okay? We don't need a middleman. We know who's behind everything, please. Nobody's buying this anymore. Anyway, this is when Jacob was dwelling for 22 years. This is all he could think of. So much so that he made a choice not to receive anything else. He closed himself off because it was so difficult for him. That's why, again, Ruach HaKodesh left him, because he chose, but also this was by design. But when the time came and the opportunity presented itself in the form of a royal escort directly to the arms of his beloved son, he's so close to that reunion, it's at his fingertips, right? Jacob does something that I doubt not a single person alive would do. Not one. And interestingly enough, last night, we just had one of the hostages was freed by Tzahal, right? They went into Gaza. They managed to free one of the hostages, a 22-year-old soldier girl. You should have seen how her family rejoiced. It's their whole world. Now think for 22 years, right? Multiply that. It's not times 22. It's times infinity. Okay. And she was gone for 3.5 weeks, something like that. So Jacob does something, like I said, that I doubt not a single person alive would do. He asks God's permission. Now, if you've been paying attention, there was one false statement that I made throughout this entire diatribe. Did you catch it? Let me help you. Jacob loved Joseph more than anyone or anything in the world. And we know how much he loved Joseph. But Jacob loved God more. Just like Abraham, who loved Jacob's father, Isaac, more than anyone in the world, and vice versa, who gave up his son because God is above all, and Isaac, who forfeit his life for the same reason. We seem to forget this. Now Jacob, some lemon water. Now Jacob showed restraint like no father could. Behold, a man of God. This is why he is Israel, and this is why we are his children. And all this, in addition to what we learned in the teaching titled The Immaculate Conception, the real one, which is the secret calendar of God, handed down from Adam throughout the generations until it reached Jacob, who became its custodian, right? We just watched the teaching exactly what this is. Isaac was no longer alive, which means Jacob was it. He had to keep counting. And if this count ceases, so does the world. This same count that can only take place in the land of Israel. And that's why God said to Jacob, don't you worry now. I need you to descend so that I can make you a great nation, and I will be with you, meaning I will count for you. So again, don't worry. This is what I want. This is how it has to be. And we both know, Jacob, it'll all be worth it. And Jacob knew this, obviously, because the Spirit returned to him. He then saw, he understood. And Jacob heard that Joseph is alive and was pondering in his heart, saying, how can I leave the land of my forefathers and the land of my birth and the land that the Shekhinah of the Holy One, blessed be He, dwells in, and go to a land that is impure among the slaves, the sons of Ham, to a land where there is no fear of heaven among them? Whew. This man. You see why God chose Jacob. You see why Jacob is the chosen one. Who says things like this? Without getting too far off, we're going to unpack what we just read. One of the many differences between Israel and the nations, for instance, is delayed gratification. You need to understand this concept. You can be parched, you can be starving, but we are not animals. We don't just chug a lug or down whatever is in front of us, no matter how we feel. We take a minute. We understand that the sustenance that we are about to receive come directly from the Holy One, blessed be He Himself, and we bless Him for it with full recognition. This liquid, this helps me. You understand? This is to rejuvenate me. And if we do not concentrate and say the proper blessing, the Zohar says we give it to the Sitra Achra. It does not benefit us. In other words, it benefits our physical body, but not our soul. That's what Moses was saying in Deuteronomy 8, right? Man cannot live on bread alone, but from every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. In other words, it is not just eating the bread. Where does this come from? The recognition. Thereby you are now elevating the physical into the spiritual, making them as one. This is incredible. Only we can do that because God gave us these commands. And when we are done, after we are done eating, when we are sated and fat, we thank Him yet again. This might be that on a microcosmic scale, of course, but you get the point of delayed gratification. Lord, I recognize that this is by your hand, with your permission. Thank you, and so on and so forth. Delayed gratification. We can all practice this, though. Jews and Noahides alike, all of us. Recognition, that's it. Abraham was the first because he was the one that recognized that God was truly the master of the universe alone. That's why anyone can do this. Done differently depending who you are, yes, but recognition, we're all one and the same. And speaking of Noahides and Noah and his kids, why do we just read that Ham is a slave? Genesis 9:29, and he said, cursed be Canaan, meaning damned be Canaan. He shall be a slave of slaves to his brethren. Vayomer arur Knaan, eved avadim yelechav. If Canaan is to be a slave, he is a slave of a slave, meaning his father Ham is a slave. And because Ham laughed and ridiculed his father, he was to become a slave to his brothers. So Ham's kid, Canaan, is a slave of a slave. So Jacob said, why do we have to go now mix with these slaves, the sons of Ham? Now, ultimately, this is how it had been decreed, of course, right? So what did God do? Knowing that Israel would eventually become the slaves of slaves, Ham, by the merit of Israel, God's firstborn son, Exodus 4:22, he made Egypt the wealthiest kingdom in the world. It is not befitting that the firstborn son of the master of the universe be slaves to the slaves. That's why he built them up only for that time that Israel were there, right? And all this just to receive his children. But the moment that it was time to leave, all the gold, all the silver, the jewels, livestock, oil, spices, incense, you name it, it all left with Israel. Thank you very much. We're out. When Jews leave a country, that country will collapse. Look it up. The Holy One, blessed be He, said to Jacob regarding his genuine concerns, do not fear, For I will descend with you to Egypt, Mitzrayma, and I will, alecha gam alo, raise you even higher than you are now. It says surely, the verse says surely, they're missing the point over there. When it may seem that we have no choice but to descend, how many of us, we could count those times in our lives where we just kept on dropping and we didn't even see the bottom. But looking back now, we understand just why we had to do that. In one case, maybe something was coming right at you, and if you would not drop, you would have been taken out. I had that several times in my life. So again, no matter who we are, it's always for the sake of the ascent. This is called yerida letzorech aliyah, a necessary descent. When does redemption begin according to our sages? The moment of the exile. That's why when Rabbi Akiva witnessed, he was there during the destruction of the temple, of the second temple, and he saw foxes playing in the Holy of Holies, and all his students were crying, "Oy vey, what happened?" Akiva was smiling and laughing. And they said, "Akiva, why are you so happy? We're so sad. The temple's destroyed." He goes, "Yes, I know, but this just proves God's word. When foxes are playing in the Holy of Holies, that the redemption is underway. The redemption begins at the moment of exile. And when does the redemption end? War. When there is war, that is the final stages of redemption. At the end of the war, Mashiach ben David. End of story. It's all over. Guess what started officially? See what I'm saying? Okay. Jacob heard this matter. He heard what God said. And when we say heard, we mean God showed him what would become of Israel. You have to understand, there's two people in the entire Tanakh that were shown actually what specifically would happen at the end of days. And it says this very clearly. And they are Jacob, as he told his sons on his deathbed, "Come, I will tell you what's going to happen to you in Acharit Hayamim, in the end of days." And that was removed from him because they don't need to know, we don't need to know, right? And the other one is, of course, Daniel. So again, I want you to come, just come with me here, okay? God showed Jacob what would become of Israel, not only during the time of the first redemption, not only during the time of Moses and the Exodus, but in the time of the final redemption, which we are currently in. He saw everything. He saw us today. Shalom lecha Yaakov Avinu. Hello to you, Father Jacob. Do you understand? He is seeing this. He is seeing us right now. We're the final generation. Thank you, Jacob, for making the descent so that we can ascend. And Jacob heard this. We were there. He saw us there, where we are now today. And so, B'zchut Avraham, Yitzchak, ve'Yaakov, God made them a promise. We are going to make it through. You know this. And Jacob heard this matter. And he took his wives and his sons and daughters and his sons' daughters. And he brought them, as said in Genesis 46:7. His sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. Who was Jacob? Who was Jacob's remaining wife at this point? It was, our sages say it was Bilhah, who was the lady of the house. As our sages say, that it was she, that she's the one who actually descended to Egypt with them, thereby fulfilling the prophecy of Joseph, that his father and mother and all his brothers would bow down to him, because it could not have been his mother, even when Jacob said it. "Oh, am I and your mother going to bow down to you too?" But Joseph's mother, Rachel, she already passed, right, when she gave birth to Benjamin. So who is his mother? His father's wife. His father's wife is also considered his mother, and now she was the only remaining of the four sisters, and so she was the lady of the house. So although she was not his birth mother Rachel, who passed many years, is exactly what I said. Therefore, she has the same status as mother to Joseph. And there is also written And there's also written about Dinah, his daughter, singular, as it is written in verse 15. These are the sons of Leah that she bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, and Dinah, his daughter. All the souls, or all the nephesh of his sons and daughters were 33. And here then it says his daughters. It comes to teach us, and we have already covered this before, so don't make it weird, that the daughters of Jacob were his sons' wives, as all Jacob's sons married their sisters, and they actually had twin sisters, each one of the tribes, right? We learned this, I believe, in chapter 36. All the 12 tribes were born with their twin sisters already in the womb, except for Joseph, and then their sisters became their wives. Joseph did, however, end up marrying Dinah's daughter, who was Dinah's daughter, Osnat, in Egypt. Now, as difficult as this may be for today's audiences, it was God who did this, and it was considered a great mercy and kindness for the children of Israel. How many times have we been told not to take the daughters of the land? Look at all the trouble that it got Israel into over the millennia. Today, you have in the States, any Jew that marries a non-Jew that knows what he's doing, and again, I'm not talking to the people that I'm working with. You guys understand, you do tshuva, you know exactly what needs to be done. But any Jew who consciously marries a daughter of the land, meaning a woman who is not a Jew, transgresses the word of God directly from the Torah. In most cases, the children that came from these unions, especially since the mother determines the child's Jewishness, the children grow up despising where they came from. Now, today, you can see it's much of the same. When you have your intermarriages, a lot of, they just fall away. Again, we're trying to be sensitive to individuals who believe they are Jews because their father is a Jew. It's not how it works, I'm sorry. There is no half Jew, there is no quarter Jew. You are either a Jew or you are not. As a result, many of these individuals despise the laws that come from the Torah, chalking them up to, well, this is what the sages say, and I'm a Jew, so there. You identify as a Jew, like we said, great, so I identify as a woman. Am I? That's how ridiculous this is. Again, who are you arguing with here? This goes back from the time of Abraham. Don't marry the daughters of the land, he told his son. So I guess maybe God got it wrong, right? Okay, perhaps 4,000 years of history isn't enough to prove God's point. Don't worry, Mashiach is coming. He's going to sort everybody out. But I can tell you this, you will not be accepted in the congregation of Israel if you do not convert properly like everyone else. You are no more a Jew than a Gentile who believes they are one. This is why God made it so the tribes already had their wives. You see, this is why this was such a great mercy, so they would not have to go out. This is an emphasis that God has put on the heart of Abraham and made it law at Sinai. The purpose of a husband and wife is to become one. What happened with Judah? He went outside. Look what happened. When Judah went and took one of the daughters of the land, she and two of her sons died. When even Ishmael and Esav, we're still dealing with them today. When Ishmael and Esav did this, it tremendously grieved both Abraham and Isaac. And that's when they took a daughter. Let's say what happened with Ishmael. We saw the kind of daughter that he took, the wife that he took. And as a result, he went and he took a different wife from his mother's house, right? That's the difference between the Ishmaelites and the Hagarites, and we can actually see them. And who did Esav marry? He took a daughter of the land. It grieved his parents because you're going to end up there. What did he do? He ended up marrying Ishmael's daughter. You see, that's, by the way, the union of Edom and Ishmael. Anyway, our sages tell us that it is more difficult to bring these two souls together than it would be to part the sea. Two souls who are supposed to be as one. So here they are, right? Here she is. You came together into the world. You don't need to look anywhere else. Amcha kulam tzadikim, they're all righteous. You're welcome, Israel. This is what God does for you. So this comes to teach us that the daughters of Jacob were his sons' wives, and all Jacob's sons married their sisters and kept it in the family that they should not marry the people of the land, and therefore they were called the seed of truth. Zera emet, as said in Jeremiah 2:21, Va'anochi nataticha shorek kulo zera emet. Yet I planted you a noble vine stock throughout of right seed. Forget the translation. You are all zera emet, the seed of emet. But you see the point of this is that in the end, only those who are pure, not 50%, not 75%, not 99% Jewish, but those who are true Israel are called zera emet. And yes, guess what? Converts are also called zera emet, because spiritually they were always Israel. They were nitzotzot kedusha, the holy sparks. They came back to the rightful place. Why are they called zera emet specifically, the seed of truth? Because Jacob's seal. What is the seal that God gave Jacob? Avraham is chesed. Jacob is emet. God gave this to him. Hence, giving him his name Israel, this is emet, truth. When they approached the borders of Egypt, all the males were counted at 66, and Joseph and his two sons were 70 minus 1. While the only two females to be counted were Dinah and Serach, the daughter of Asher. Now, the reason for this is is that all the original twin sisters, the wives of the tribes, had already passed. All their wives had already passed. And as we know, but didn't learn just yet, is that Dinah still had a part to play in Egypt. I don't know if we're going to touch on it in this series, but very, very interesting what happened with Dinah, as well as Serach, who went on to live through the entire exile in Egypt, and she walked in alive into the Garden of Eden. Serach, the daughter of Asher, the one who sang for Jacob that Joseph still lives. In fact, she was the one, who confirmed Joseph's secret code at the end when Moses came as the deliverer. We know what happened there, right? Moses came with signs and wonders, and Israel's like, signs and wonders do not impress us. Other religions, signs and wonders absolutely impress them, but we don't care about signs and wonders. Why? It's even written in Deuteronomy. We don't care about signs and wonders. They went to the person who was alive when Joseph left that secret code, and she said, Pakod Yifkod, that's the guy. That's our deliverer, that's our redeemer. As written in Deuteronomy 10:22, "B'shiv'im nefesh yardu avotecha mitzrayma ve'ata shimcha Adonai Elohecha samcha Adonai Elohecha kekochavei hashamayim lerov." With 70 nefesh, your forefathers descended to Egypt, right? What did the Holy One, blessed be He, do? He counted Himself among their ranks, and they became 70 to fulfill what was said in Genesis 46:6, I will go down with you to Egypt. Just like God joined included Himself in the sons of Jacob, i.e. the children of Israel, when they made a pact to keep the selling of Joseph quiet. The Shekhinah included in this, and that is why it actually took place. And that leads to this. There's also an incredible remez, a hint that God gave Jacob regarding his guarantee to bring him, Jacob, and his children, Israel, up from the land of Egypt, and this came in the form of Yocheved. Get this. Yocheved was born in between the walls of Egypt, in between the inner wall and outer wall, right? In other words, right in between. She was not born in Egypt, but also not born in Israel, but right in between. Yocheved, who's Yocheved? She's the mother of Moses, the deliverer of Israel, and the one who would take them out and lead them right up until the borders of the land. The numerical value of the name of Yocheved is 42. 42 is the name of God that represents ascension and fire, as it is the nature of fire to ascend. while God's 72-letter name represents mercy and water, and it is water's nature to descend. This is why at the temple, by the altar, the fire was constantly burning. And that is when the 42-letter name was used all the time to help ascend the offerings, as God would then bring down the blessings as a result. 42, 72, 42, 72, back and forth at the same, not even 1, 2, 1, 2, at the same time. It was an open gateway. It was a funnel. It was a channel. God told Jacob he would descend and ascend with him. And Yocheved solidified that promise just as they were entering Egypt. Jacob didn't need any more guarantees from God, but God gave it to him anyway, just because. Look at our God. You see this? Amazing. When Israel ascended from Egypt, all the men were then counted at 600,000, Shishim Ribo minus 1. These, of course, were men only aged 20 and up. Why specifically 20 and up? Because when a man from Israel turns 20, that is when he receives his neshama, his soul. You understand? When you're born, after the 8th day, you receive your nefesh. Then when you receive the mitzvot, the ol Torah, the yoke of Torah upon you at 13, that's when you receive your ruach. And when you are 20, that's when you receive your neshama. That's when you can already start to go places. The ceiling has been lifted from you. So that's when he is now completely capable of not only doing God's work, but receiving his word. So there were 600,000 minus 1. What did the Holy One, blessed be he, do? He counted himself among their ranks, and they became 600,000 to fulfill his word that said, and I will also bring you up, va'anochi a'alecha gam alo. We know that history repeats itself over and over. On a personal level, we go through the same trials over and over and over again, perhaps with different actors in different settings, but they are all the same trials nonetheless. This, of course, will stop the moment we understand what it is that we need to learn. And the only way to understand what it is that we need to learn is to go through the trials themselves. That's it. Go through them, not around them, not figure out how to avoid them. God is bringing this to us because we need this right now. You want help? Deal with this. This will help you. Take your medicine. It doesn't taste good, but it will make you better. So essentially, all our trials, on a personal note, are actually a gift from God. Our problem is we don't want to go through them. I get it, as most people would rather stay exactly where we are. God is taking that option away right now, mind you. And these individuals, they are very not happy. They are not, regardless, they're not happy where they're at. They are not content. In fact, they are absolutely miserable and make all those around them miserable as well. But they still refuse to go through discomfort for the sake of their own personal growth, thereby not only helping themselves, but those around them as well. There is no room in the world to come for these individuals. We have to constantly change. If you are comfortable where you are, the ground is shifting. The ground is lava. It is being melted away. If you do not move in the only direction, which is God, you're not going to make it. On a collective scale, which ultimately is how Israel are measured, as Solomon said, what has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there's nothing new under the sun. There is a thing of which someone will say, see, this is new. It has already been for ages, which were before us, right? You want to see how quickly time passes, but we're not aware of it. I'm talking to us today. But there is no remembrance of former generations, neither will the last ones that will be have any remembrance among those that will be afterwards. Former generations today was what happened or supposedly officially ended not 6 months ago. Does anyone remember that? I guess we all forgot about the mysterious virus of unknown origins, right? I guess we all forgot about how our government's selling out their citizens to receive the magic cure. I guess we're all just going to sweep that under the rug. You see, you forget. People forget. Everybody's so focused on what's happening now. Take 2 steps back, you'll see the pattern. But nobody wants to see it. It's too scary for people. So let's sweep under the rug. As there have never been more deaths of heart-related issues since the magic cure has all been shoved down our throats, so to speak. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's focus on this new thing right now. Oh, and make no mistake, we are not done with that part too, okay? So long as we don't learn, which we are not. As I've explained plenty over the past several years, that was just the beginning, as the word corona means crown, as in the top of the head of the child that is beginning to show, the birth pangs, if you will. But the head and shoulders, well, that's the tricky part. In other words, corona, that was a cakewalk. What's coming is more and more and more painful. So I've been told anyway. But I digress. Since we know that our governments have poisoned us, made deals with and sold us to the most corrupt organizations in the world, the UN, the WHO, IMF, WEF, all the Fs. People really just don't get it. They just do not get it. And unfortunately, most do not want to get it. It's too difficult to comprehend. We don't have to be in Egypt to be in Egypt. Know what I mean? How did Jacob put it? And go to a land that is impure among the slaves. Who are slaves? Everybody. To the sons of Ham, who runs the world, to a land where there is no fear of heaven among them. Yeah, pretty much. And here we are in the land of Israel. And although the land of Israel is pure, you bring in impurities and that happens. So sure, we might physically be in Israel right now, but we're acting a whole lot like we did in ancient Egypt. We are slaves to the system. In fact, the powers that be made certain that this is what it would look like. Here specifically in our young state, they had, the powers that be had an opportunity to form a new state according to whatever image they wanted. And it's not according to God's image. It's according to their image on the land of Israel, God's holy place, if you will. And it is God who is saying in Jeremiah 30, "For behold, days are coming, says the Lord, when I will restore the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, says the Lord, and I will restore them to the land that I gave their forefathers, and they shall possess it." Right now, we are in the land of Israel. But so long as the Erev Rav government stands, the Supreme Courts, with their pyramid and the all-seeing eye, on top of the Supreme Courts here in Jerusalem, they are the Supreme Courts? I think not. And so long as the temple does not stand, we do not have possession of the land. Period. And these are the words of the Lord spoke concerning Israel and concerning Judah. Those who are scattered, Israel, and those who chose to remain, Judah. For so said the Lord, a sound of quaking we have heard, fear, and there is no peace. Ki כה אמר Adonai, kol charada shamanu. Charada is anxiety, dread, fear. If you knew exactly what was coming, if you knew what the real plan was, you would not be able to sleep at night. The only reason I'm able to sleep at night is because I know what comes afterwards. That's it. If I was not connected to God, I do not envy people who do not want to know what's coming. They live in complete terror and chaos, which is exactly what the powers that be want. But I know what comes next, and I know in who I trust. And that is why I am calm. This next one is hilarious, by the way. It could be nothing, but my goodness, okay? Does it not speak of our time and no other time in history? Ask now and see whether a male gives birth, apparently in this day and age, right? This time, the ruling public in the land that represents Edom, good old USA, says, yes, men can give birth. Why have I seen every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in confinement, and every face is turned to pallor? I don't know why men are acting like women today. Same point, same question. If this is not an indication of the signs of our times, and honestly, not even 5 years ago. Hoi, oh, for that day is great, with none like it. In other words, the reckoning that's coming. And it is a time of distress for Jacob. Now listen, what comes next? Because this is the punchline, through which he shall be saved. Ve'et tzarahi leYaakov umimena ivashea. You cannot be saved without it. You cannot be saved without it coming, without going through it. Israel could not have become Israel, the mighty nation of God, if they did not first descend to the pits of impurity in Egypt, if they did not live like the rest of the nations, as we do today, if they did not embed their lives into the false system of man, if they were not put through the ringer to remove even the 80% among them whose hearts were not pure, who would rather stay in the status quo life in their ghettos, though separate from the Egyptians, still perfectly content with remaining exactly where they were. Unfortunately, but it is changing. I know many Orthodox Jews today who are very happy and content. Let's just get back and go back to normal. What is normal? That there is a mosque where our temple should be? That they're killing us, poisoning us, that everyone hates us, but that no temple stands? That is back to normal? That is anything but normal. Thank God, seriously thank God that this has been bothering me so much once I realized the importance of it. We don't have a temple, we are still in exile. The status quo does not fly. Those are the 80% that did not leave Egypt. People, we are rapidly advancing towards the end, so much so that guess what? Now we can finally look at Daniel, the book of Daniel, and begin to have an understanding of where we are. How difficult is it going to be? What's coming? Let's see. Daniel 12:1. Now at that time, in the future, because everything, if you read Daniel 11, Daniel 10, you're going to see Gabriel speaking to Daniel not only about what your people are going to have to deal with now when it comes to Persia, the prince of Persia, the rulers and kings of Persia, but also in the end times with the same root of Persia, i.e. Iran. And it's funny because they're called the bear, right? The beast that he saw that was a bear. But ask yourself this. When you think of a country today, who is the bear? Exactly. Who really controls Iran? There's your answer. Now at that time, Michael, the great prince who stands over the children of your people, will be silent. Why? Because all these things have to happen. And it will be a time of distress. Distress, it says. It says distress, not destruction. Distress that never was since a nation existed until that time. And at that time, your people will escape everyone who is found inscribed in the book. What book is this? This is the Torah, of course, the book/tree of life to those who grab hold of it, because that is our source of strength. When Moses said to God, "Mecheni na misifrecha," remove me, blot me out of your book, the next parsha, Moses' name is not mentioned there. Because Moses said, and God said, I'm going to do what you say. What happened with Zimri from the tribe of Shimon, who took Cosby and started fornicating with her in front of everybody? He was not mentioned. And a man from the tribe of Shimon took a woman, a Midianite princess, and did such and such with her. His name was not there. Only in Parsh, that was at the end of Balak, but when Pinchas came and did what he did, through death and public humiliation, parading them around, were they redeemed, and Zimri's name was inscribed in the book of life. Even he has redemption, you see. What does it mean to be inscribed in the book of life? If you are a Jew, you better live according to the Torah. That's what that means. And if you are not a Jew, you better support Israel, because if you stand against Israel in any way, shape, or form, you have no future. There is nothing there. Okay? That's it. The way that the nations enter into the covenant is through Israel, is by Israel, period. God told Abraham, through you all the nations of the earth will be blessed. In fact, when are we told, according to Daniel, that these times will end? Again, it says time of trouble. It says the words exactly, time of distress. All those who are God's have nothing to worry about. And if you are worried, maybe there is a reason. Don't get me wrong, I'm worried too. And Arina and I always have the conversation, are we doing enough? Can we be doing more? Okay, hold on. Let's look at our lives. Look first where we came from. Wow, look where I came from. You guys have no idea the half of it. And I'll tell you stories and stories. But like I said, a few years ago, I would have been dancing at that party around the idol by Gaza, okay? To an extent, okay? That was not that exactly, but you get the point. Tshuva, people. This is what it's about. God is shaking us, and a lot of people are doing tshuva because the place to stand is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and the only place of refuge is under God. He is our tower, right? And I heard the man in clad linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he raised his right hand and his left hand in the heavens, and he swore by the life of the world. Then in the time, 2 times, and half a time, when they have ended shattering the strength of the holy people, all these will end. That's when it's going to end. When everything has shattered the strength of the holy people, of us. What does that mean? What is perceived strength today? What does Israel perceive? How do we perceive our strength today? It's obvious. Our military, our intelligence. Israeli intelligence, it's already an oxymoron, you understand? How quickly are they being dismantled? People don't trust the military. That's why we pray for our soldiers. They're not the ones who are making the calls. They're not the ones responsible for this. These are the souls that are giving their lives right now. That is why they're called tzaddikim kulam. Whether they're Orthodox or secular, irrelevant. They could not believe in God, but the fact is that they're putting their lives on the line for Israel. Tzaddikim kulam, and they have a special place for them, waiting in the highest layers of Gan Eden. And yes, God is doing this right now. So all our perceived strength is being dismantled. Back just, over 6 months ago, people stopped believing in the government. People completely lost faith in all the health system, in the police. Now we're losing faith in the string pullers in the military, losing faith in our intelligence agencies and whatnot. So only when whoever's inscribed in that book, sees that our perceived strength is gone, will they turn to God and God alone. Then, as we read, all these will end. I'm going to give you an example, okay? A lot of times we know that there's one answer. There's one answer. There's one thing that we have to do. Our life could be in shambles. There's one thing that we have to do, and that thing is to turn to God exclusively, right? But we come up with so many excuses how to fix all these problems instead of actually doing the one single thing that can actually help us. And unfortunately, I do know people like this. I mean, it's not that unfortunately I know them. It's unfortunate for them. The one thing that can actually help them in every single way and make all the problems quite literally disappear, purifying, exalting everything. They choose A, B, C, D, E, and they choose every other option. So God in his mercy, one by one, is taking all the options away until there's no other options. This is where, if you read in the Mishnah at the end of Masechet Sotah, it says exactly what is going to happen, which is what we're seeing. Because in the end, ein al mili sha'en, when we will all say, exclusively, we have nobody to lean on except for our Father in heaven. That is when the end will come, when our perceived strength, everything is taken away, and then all is left is God. And that is when the people, this is that choice at the end of days. You either choose God or not God. Because right now you could say, well, there's another option. No, there's no more options. You either choose God or oblivion. And you hear these stories from people who are in the surrounding kibbutzim over there in Gaza. When they saw, they see, thousands. There were thousands of murderous beasts coming at them. There was this woman. She had 3 kids with her. Again, these people are secular, but these are Jewish souls, so they know. I just saw this yesterday. All these stories are coming out right now. She saw them coming to her house, slaughtering, killing everybody along the way. You have no idea the kind of carnage was there. And she said, God, if you get me out of this, I promise you, I give you my word, I am going to keep the Sabbath from this one until the day that I die. And by a miracle, they just went right by her house. They just went right through. It's like they didn't see her house. These stories are coming out right now. People are yelling out Shema Yisrael. And by that, she saved her life, she saved her children's life, and she saved her soul. She just solidified that she has a place in the world to come, regardless of what comes after. A lot of people still don't want to do this because they're not faced with that. But at that point, that woman had one choice, God or oblivion, and she chose right. You see, it doesn't have to come down to that for all of us, but it will come down to that for some of us, for those that are not in with God right now. So, if God forbid it comes down to that choice, that terror that you're going to be facing, where you're staring certain death, and hopefully it's a quick one, in the face, make sure you choose God. Always. But do it before it even comes to that. It will be good for you. In any case. Okay. The clock is moving quicker now. And actually, I wrote this down. Buckle up, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. Noah's flood starts tonight. On Halloween. How appropriate. And remember, this descent that we're all going to take is very, very necessary. We're going to rise in the end. Don't you worry. Have you entered the ark? That's what you need to focus on right now. It starts tonight. So thank you guys so much for joining me. As always, I'm so grateful for all the support that you have been giving this channel. Thank you for the support that you have shown our soldiers, our innocent soldiers, the tzaddikim that are on the front lines. Please keep praying, keep saying tehillim, keep dedicated. Just think in your mind for the safety of them, that you can visualize these things. The powers that be are taking these things away from you, but you can visualize and it will be, okay? Visualize God protecting them, angels covering them, that every single bullet that they fire rings true right into the skull of a savage beast. And it will be so. So thanks again. God willing, I'll see you all in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom.